Kieran, how are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. Yeah, very good.
How is life after footy?
Well, life after footy is awesome, to be honest. Like it's, I always get asked, like, do you miss it? But no, I just don't. I think I'm fortunate to do my time and go out on my own terms and in a really good place to kind of, enjoy this next phase of my life, which is, doing something different to footy, which is my business and to leadership, but also spending plenty of time with the kids and being a dad and a husband. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
You seem like you're really happy and you're in a great space.
Yeah, I am, 100%. It is. It's, I don't know, like I really enjoyed my time in playing professional rugby and the spotlight of what it meant. But I think you just get to the time where it's, obviously your body can't handle it anymore. And in some ways it's nice mentally to kind of go back to maybe not quite a normal life, but, in life that you can just really enjoy and settle into and maybe a bit more normal for yourself.
The number 1083, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's special. It is special. It's obviously my All Black number and something that I'll hold with me for the rest of my life and hopefully my grandkids and their grandkids and everyone will know what that number means. So it's a huge honour to be part of that pretty cool club. So it was huge for me to to hold on to that number. Yeah.
You talk about the club. It is a special club. Not many people get to do it. What was it actually like being an All Black?
Being All Black had a mixture of emotions really. Like I think when you're initially named, it is exhilaration, it's pride, it's honour, it's amazing stuff, eh? But then there's the realisation of I guess holding up the tradition, the legacy of what that jersey was and the All Blacks were. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to make sure that you do it justice and you do it well. But certainly every time you ran out on that field with the jersey on, it was immense pride in your country, immense pride in All Blacks have been there before you, and the guys who you ran out alongside was probably the most pleasing bit of it all. Was getting to do it with your best mates and testing yourself against the best in the world. So yeah, it's a pretty awesome time.
Yeah, I get this amazing sense of pride and the privilege that it was for you to represent New Zealand and wear that black jersey. But you mentioned the pressure. What was the pressure like from the All Blacks itself, living up to the traditions, but also from the public? What was that like for you? 11 years in that environment is a very, very long time.
Yeah, look, I think the environment and the pressure side of that environment, expectation from outside, I think it's a good thing. I think it's it's what it should be for the All Blacks, who are successful and we expect a lot of them as a public and certainly as players within the team as well. You want to do well. So I didn't mind the expectation, and I think in the teams that I was involved in, I guess as I progressed through the ranks, the senior players kind of said it was a privilege really to be in the position we're in. That didn't hide from the fact that if you didn't do well or things didn't work out for you, you didn't feel like you'd let down people. I certainly had that at certain moments. Like I remember playing for the Crusaders, in my first year or so, and as a young man, and you had a loss on the weekend, and like personally, I felt like I'd let down the entire region and didn't want to go out the next day and face the public. It felt like everyone's eyes were on you, thinking you'd failed. So definitely had those moments. But I guess as you moved on, you realised that I'd much rather have an expectation from the public of us trying to do well than really not caring at all. So yeah, it's always there, but I think it's a really good thing for the team.
Those moments where you felt like you had let people down, let your region down, how did you deal with those? Was that something that just became more natural over time? How did young Kieran and older Kieran deal with it throughout your career?
Yeah, it never became. Oh, it became easier, I guess, once you lost. When I probably realised that it's not all about the game, and it is a game. There's other parts of my life that define who I am. But certainly early on, I think you put so much emphasis on doing well and obviously performing well and winning that it was hard sometimes. And we'd go to pool sessions the next day with a couple of my mates who we'd played with, and always try and keep our head down and avert kind of the public eye, and just naturally kind of felt like you'd had earned their respect. But realising in the end, every conversation that you did have in those moments was really positive. Like, people never came up to you and begged you. They're there to support you and look after you. So I think learning that, I think, helped. And as you got a bit older, you kind of just, it was a bit easier to put things into perspective and, realise that one loss or one bad performance doesn't really define who you are.
When you talk about the words pressure and expectation, both within the group and on the outside of the group, we're led to believe it's one, being good men and being good people, but also success. You had a lot of success throughout your career. Can you talk to us about some of those highs that you experienced, like the World Cup here in New Zealand? I mean, what makes you light up inside with those moments?
Oh, look, that was, it was a special time, I think, playing here in 2011 for that World Cup at home. I think the expectation and the pressure of us playing at home after 24 years, after the All Blacks turning up to every World Cup post 87, expected to win and not quite getting the job done, it was, it felt like us were carrying all those teams, we were carrying the nation as well. And being at home, it was the first time I think the public had really embraced the game, like potentially a lot of the other countries around the world had, and supported it wholeheartedly, turning up at our hotels and watching us jump on the bus, lining the streets as we're driving to the ground. It in some ways ramped up the pressure on us, but in other ways it was just like, oh, how awesome is this, And so we did a lot of work, I guess, in that time of reframing our mindsets, because, a lot of us as young people were like, man, this is going to overrule us and we're not going to be able to do what we need to on the field. So a lot of senior players and management kind of reframed a lot of our mindsets, and instead of what if we lose, it's kind of the case of, hey, how cool will it be when we win type of thing. So that helped us, and I guess getting the job done in the end by a point in the final was pretty special, and made kind of the moments throughout that World Cup kind of made it for me, and the people you did it with is always the thing I come back to. The winning and those things that happen is cool, but most importantly for me, it's the people you did it with, and those friendships that I'll have for a lifetime. So
if it wasn't necessarily the winning and the success, what are some of those moments that just fill you with joy? It's the times with my mates. Certainly, you work so hard and you see each other's down moments. You see each other when you're going through a bit of adversity, where things are tough, and you've got to work your way through that, whether that's on a training field or that's off it as well. And so you get to know these guys really well. And then when you can put it out on the field and look around and just see, how much you can trust that guy, and how much they trust you, and how cool it is that you're doing what you're doing. With those guys is, it's probably those moments that I really, really cherish. And then I think too, it's also that real moment of finishing a game, a tough test match, wherever that may be, and going into a shed and just sitting there and looking around. I really enjoyed that moment. That was a special moment that not many people get to enjoy, and it all comes back from the sacrifices and all the extra stuff that you've been through. No one else really knows what that team has gone through to get to that moment. And nowadays too, it's so hard to enjoy it because you're always thinking about the next thing. And I know that happens in life, for everyone, not just in sport, but
finding time to actually appreciate the moment and enjoy it rather than just always think about the next thing. And that was always a cool moment.
So if you talk about career highlights for you, is it the moments after sitting in the dressing room, or are there a couple of other things that spring to mind?
Career highlights or career moments, I think, I remember the dressing rooms and I obviously remember the wins that we've had. I don't remember too much of the performances and those games. I think when I look back, it is those moments in the shed. It's those moments potentially, that night after a big win in South Africa, or the World Cup wins, and the times that you get to share with your friends and teammates and stuff. So, the big moments are the World Cups, and but even just testing yourself on the bigger stage, like playing the Lions at home here was incredible experience, and drawing the series, which in some ways wasn't what we wanted, but look back and say that you played in one of those series and a unique environment, and now I've got a captain of the Lions, Sam Warburton, who now we kind of text each other and have a bond that you couldn't really get outside of doing what we did in that series. So I've definitely kind of got that perspective on things now than just the wins.
You've talked to us about success. You've talked to us about what it was like when you didn't get success with the Crusaders. But what was it like when you didn't get success with the All Blacks and you're the All Blacks captain?
When you lost in the All Black jersey, it hurt. It definitely did, and that's personally because your own expectation is, and we're good enough to win every Test match, and that's not going to happen. That doesn't happen in life, but you always prepare as if you're going to. So the key thing was taking the lessons from it. I think you can hurt that night and the next day. But there was always, a lot of the time, you had another Test match to look forward to the next week. So looking for that thing to really drive you, and then take the lessons from those losses. If I look across my career, there's a couple of kind of big ones, losses that happen. I think the Lions, when you drew that series, it felt like a loss. It hurts you. I think too, like, that's when, potentially the media will jump on, like it can only take one loss and suddenly you're the worst team in the world or something, and you could have done some good things before that. But, you knew in yourself that potentially you'd either let yourself down, or performance, or the team had. So it didn't really need too much else to kind of jump on board for that to really sink into you. But I think was the hardest thing, I think, if you look back on those times where things didn't go well, was the impact it had on your family and friends. And because I was lucky, I didn't read the media, I didn't know. You certainly knew when it was being spoken about yourself, but your family's reading everything, and a lot of the time treating it as gospel, as you do, and with the papers. And it can kind of really affect them. So it's probably the hard thing when those things happen.
Yeah, and when you're talking about your family, I imagine mum and dad are the sort of age that would have read the paper religiously, like so many of us in New Zealand. So what was it like for them, and how were you able to help and comfort them in those times?
Yeah, it's, for my parents, like they would read everything, and I think, they're pragmatic enough. I've told them enough too, not to believe everything you read in the paper, but hey, they're going to read it. And I think, it's natural for their friends too to point out to them and talk to them, how's Kieran going, or different things. But I was lucky that my parents didn't, they were invested their time and their effort to come and support me and watch me. But, we never really talked about the game, or anything about performance or anything. It was more a case of them, they were there to support me. I knew they did it tough on a few occasions, but majority of my career I was very fortunate to have some really positive experiences. So the cool thing was, I think, and across even my early part of when I started playing and kind of making teams, it wasn't the verbal support that they showed us, it was the physical support of being there, and for me knowing that they'd drive me to the trial or drive me to this and support me in whichever way they can.
We've talked about Kieran Read, the All Black, Kieran Read, the Crusader, but we know that you're so much more than just a rugby player. That was just a small part of your life. So tell us, who is Kieran Read? Like behind that All Blacks jersey, if you strip everything back.
Yeah, who is Kieran Read? I'm not too sure. I think
You're
other
different,
people...
aren't you?
Yeah, I'm different. Like I think, you know, if people look at me now and every time conversation is, I'm Kieran Read, former All Black captain, so that's where the conversation goes. But I truly believe I'm not just that. You know, I was very lucky to have a pretty diverse upbringing in South Auckland and Papakura, and you know, able to live a life of many cultures and play in sports teams with different people, and then also understand who I was. Like I was a very shy, very quiet kid. Like I had no confidence in my own self. I think when I got onto a sports field, I would show some ability and I'd show some confidence, but never would talk about it outside of those white lines, you know. And so, yeah, I think I was a nerd as well, you know. Like I was you know, I love Harry Potter, I love Lord of the Rings, I love Big Bang Theory, all those type of things that not too many rugby players do. And so you just had to, in some ways, try and find a way to be yourself. And I struggled early on to try and do that. But yeah, I think as you grow more comfortable in yourself, you kind of find a way to do that. When I was, I think I was about 16, it's quite a cool story. I was playing first 15 at this time. I think I was year 11, so for fifth form. And the sixth and seventh form, we were away at their school ball. And my brother was in there and a few of my mates and different things. Dad invited me, I got a ticket to the after ball. So that starts at midnight or whatever it was. So I was pretty excited, but I couldn't go to the ball. So I was in bed reading Harry Potter from about 9 o'clock to 11, and then got changed, had a shower, got changed, and went to the after ball at midnight. You know, so it kind of shows the juxtaposition of who I was. Like I could kind of blend in with different groups and different people, but you know, kind of found a way to be myself.
How do you be yourself in an environment? Because there's probably a lot of people in New Zealand, like everyone's different, right? Not everyone is this macho person who doesn't show emotions or feelings or doesn't want to talk about things. There are just all walks of life that come into sports teams and workplaces and environments. How do you be yourself without being embarrassed? You know, how do you unashamedly be Kieran Read or be who you are?
Oh, it's hard. It's so hard. Like, you know, like everyone's naturally got their own self and their own identity and who they can, you know, identify with. But, you know, you get put into a team environment and there's hierarchy, there's different things that come out of that. And the best way I can describe it and how I could, for myself, grow into who I was, because as I said, I was shy, I was quiet. I sat in some of the early rooms and teams that I played in as a nobody, you know, like I came from Roseville College, so I felt like I was a nobody for that early stage, but it was mentors, it was coaches, had to give me the confidence first, you know, like I had to be given acceptance. So it was by those leaders, those people I looked up to, you know, like they helped me, they told me I was going to be great or told me I could be myself. And
did you believe them?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't believe them. You know, but they kept telling me, but then they actually gave me opportunities to believe them, you know. And then suddenly I could believe in myself. And then, you know, I guess from that you just progress. And once you have that little bit of confidence and of who you are, then yeah, you're a bit more able to be yourself. So the environment's key, I think, for that to happen. And we've got to look at ourselves as leaders. That you're the ones who create that environment. If you're closed off, if you're not allowing anyone else to speak, then there's no way your young people are going to come into an environment and be able to be themselves. So I think I learned that over my time, and you know, when you kind of became the captain, it was like, okay, hopefully this skill that I've maybe learnt, I'm trying to get the best out of our young people in that space. So yeah, it's very hard to do. You know, it'll take time, but once you get there, then you're just so much more comfortable in yourself.
You talk about being shy, being quiet, having no confidence. Can you believe what you've gone on to achieve and the things that you've done when you talk about those three things? The fact that you're sitting here right now, you know, having a conversation about it.
I think looking, like right now, yeah, I can believe it. If you told me it, you know, in my high school years, if this would happen, there's no way I would have probably believed that. I did have a drive. I did have something that, you know, I wanted to do well in. And I don't know if it's the imposter syndrome or not at that stage, but, you know, at school we were, you know, Roseville College, one rugby team in our school. We scraped together our first 15. I was fortunate enough to have great mentors to help me out, but then I made a team. I made a New Zealand secondary schools team that my last year at high school, out of kind of nowhere. I didn't even know the team existed. You know, that's kind of where I was at in my rugby. And then, so I go into an institution that had, these guys have played together for years, you know, they've been to camps for the last few years. I kind of came in there as someone, oh, do I belong here, you know? So I didn't quite know that at that stage. And then I made a few other teams and still didn't really trust myself until, yeah, it took me a long time to figure that out. And in some ways, having that on my shoulder pushed me, and it helped me in some ways. In some ways, if I'd been able to get rid of that earlier, I might have been more confident and trusted myself a bit earlier in my career. But you know, it assisted me and guided me in some ways too.
You mentioned imposter syndrome, which is something many people deal with, knowingly or not. Is that something that you think you've dealt with, whether or not you knew it at the time?
Yeah, I didn't know it was what it was, but I think I did 100% early on. I think too, when you get fixated on something, like when I became All Black captain, it was a case of, man, I've got to do this. I'm following on from the greatest captain ever to play the game, and Richie, and you're going, man, I can't be him, you know, and you kind of felt like, oh, you know, how am I going to do that? But you know, I was very fortunate. I'd had a lot of experiences, and knew I had to be myself. I couldn't try and fill his shoes. I had to, you know, just fill my own shoes, you know, and be who I was. But in saying that though, you carry a lot of burden and you carry a lot of weight with you in those times, and a lot of down moments in sport and in All Blacks on tour where you're just in your hotel room and you're just thinking about ways to be better and things you could have done differently and all that. So there's always those moments, but I always tried to find a positive way out of those moments as well.
Tell us, how did you find the positives? What were those moments that would lift you back up again when you had time to just think through everything in your own mind? Yeah,
I think thinking through things was okay. Like, so yeah, the things that I could have done better, or things I think the team could do better as well as the things. So it was okay to have some of those little negative thoughts that come in. But I always wanted to. I always said to myself, hey, you've got to have a solution. You've got to have something, a real focus for you to carry from those thoughts into a positive mindset. So I focused on that, making sure I could, okay, those things have happened, or I think this is going to happen. What can I do to make that work? So whether that was a conversation with another teammate or a coach, or me fixing my language for the next training session or meeting or whatever it was. So it gave me a little focus at the end of it.
What would you like to say to other people that may be watching this and they relate to a certain part of your journey? What would you like people to take away from hearing you speak?
I think from my journey, I guess, shows hopefully that you can make it no matter where you're from, your journey, where you've come from. There's certain things you have to do to be able to make it, but hopefully you can try and make it your way, and then hopefully, you don't have to go too far away from who you are as well. I think it's the key, and hopefully I tried to do that. It's very hard to do it at the very top level, to try and be your genuine self all the time. But hopefully that's who I was across my career, and where I want to be now, and as a dad. So I think that's the key thing too, is if you're doing it as authentically as you can, then it's just going to be so much more enjoyable for yourself and for everyone else around you as well.
And what would you like to say to young Kieran Read from Rosal College that was shy, that had no confidence, that was quiet? What would you say to him?
I'd say to him, look, it's going to work out all right, really. Not to worry too much. Just back yourself. Yeah.
And that immense pride that you felt when you were talking about the All Blacks jersey at the very start, like half an hour ago. Do you have that sense of pride when talking about yourself? Are you proud of who you are and what you've done, Kieran Read?
I'm getting there. I don't know if it's a Kiwi thing or not. I don't think I can talk about my All Black career as being this great thing as yet. I do know it was pretty cool and special what I've done. But yeah, I think I'm still learning and still getting better as a person. I want to do even better things. That's kind of my mindset. And as a dad now, it's kind of that's where I want to be. I want to be improving and getting better every day in that space as well. So yeah, I'm proud, definitely, but I still feel like I can be better in certain things as well, which maybe is a good thing, but maybe need to rein in as well.
Well, Kieran, that's all the questions that I have for you, but is there anything else that you want to add? The reason why you wanted to speak out? Have we covered everything that you've wanted to talk about, the pressures, the identity?
Yeah. I think I had written some notes, so I think I'm trying to remember if I covered most of them. But yeah, I think so. I think, look, it's... I feel like I'm in a really privileged position. I've been in a really amazing position. And, like the things that didn't go so well for me were quite small in respect to a lot of other people in life and different things. But the way you kind of find purpose and find meaning to try and push through a lot of them, I think can correlate. So I think it's, for me, the reason I'm here is because I know that I've come to realise that I can have an impact, and if you can have an impact, No point sitting on the sidelines.